2 seconds. There we go. Just have to.
Lovely. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our ChatGPT for Travel Marketing webinar. So I'm Jen Fine. I'm head of product at Yuli and really excited to be supporting this event and showcasing our ambassadors who are going to share their expertise and learnings from using ChatGPT for travel marketing. And so I'm going to introduce Vika, who is sort of the one who sort of manifested this event with Katie and Will from Peak OBM. And yeah, they're going to walk us through a lot of amazing content. And please feel free to pop questions into the chat along the way, or just raise your hand and we can answer them either throughout, or we're saving about 15 minutes at the end for questions as well. Oh, hi, Nick. Welcome. All right, Vika, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Hello, everyone. It's a big topic, and I think it's on the tongue for most people dealing with some kind of marketing, and it's big, of course, for travel marketing as well. So we wanted to kind of talk about it. It's not stay silent, right, and be a little bit of a fear. So bring it to the light. And the second I saw it, I thought this is exciting, and I loved hearing from Katie immediately that this is a magic wand, but you still need a magician, right? So it's not something that will solve all of your problems. And one of the big mistakes that we noticing people doing is expecting it to solve everything. Okay, I got this tool. We just got it all covered right away, and it's not gonna work this way. So we wanted to bring attention to this very, very amazing tool that definitely not going away anywhere, and will stay and will make work for a lot of marketers, a lot of operational people also much different, much easier, hopefully, with the right prompts. So just to address the few basic things, if you played with it, you probably know what prompt engineering is, what prompts are, how to deal with initial operations addressing ChatGPT. If you didn't, you're in the right place, because we're gonna talk through the very essentials, very basic, why it's a good tool, what to expect from it, what not to expect from it. I think one of the main things to cover today. And of course, we want to make sure you live with practical examples. It's not just somewhere out there that maybe potentially you get to, but you actually learn how to use that for your social media content or for your workflows. And we're going to give you a little cheat sheet to go home with and do some homework. So that's an agenda for today. What are the benefits, what are the limitations, and how to actually get it to work. So with that prompt, I'm going to give it to Katie to work us through the life examples and best practices.
Awesome. Thanks for the lovely intros, ladies. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie. I am the founder of Peak Flow Online Business Management, and we are a full-service agency that holistically assists travel organizations to optimize their technology and streamline their operations for greater exposure and amplified profits. So we've been a partner with Yuli for a few years now, and we love this software and this tool. And I keep going back to the days when I worked at Wild Women Expeditions doing group tours, and just like, man, if we had this tool, everything would have just been so much better. We worked around it at the time, but now we have Yuli, and that's really exciting. So quick show of hands, or drop it in the chat. Who has used ChatGPT already and you have some experience? You can give me a thumbs up, or you can raise your hand on the camera if you have your camera on. Let's take a little pulse on that. Okay, we heard from a few when we were doing our initial intros that they're starting to use it. Folks are you've started playing with it a little bit. You're starting to get familiar with the content that it can produce to you. Great. So a few folks playing with it. That's great. What about, do you raise any hands or put an emoji in are you using chat every day? Like, is it one of those little tabs that you just have open all the time? Ooh, Bobby says yes. Nice work. Kat's using it daily. Will, Nick, great. All day, not just a couple times, all day. Okay, great. So we have some experienced folks in here, which is exciting to see. And so with that, Will's going to give you a little introduction to chat for anybody who's just new to this tool. I know you've heard it around, but Will's just going to give you a brief intro into exactly what it is and a little bit about how it works, just for some context. That's going to help us with our discussion about prompts a little bit later in the session. Over to Will.
All right. So ChatGPT, as we all know, went viral back in November of 2022. That's when everybody started hearing about it. It did actually exist prior to that, but the breakthrough that they had was that they got it to start spitting out far more accurate content far quicker, and they got a breakthrough of where it could start actually understanding the context of human language in relation to what is being said prior to the word and what should be said after the word. So what ChatGPT is it's a natural language processing tool based on GBT, which is the generative pre-trained transformer, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a computer model that uses a bunch of other computer models. And they've mashed all these models together to give the computer an understanding of the rules-based modeling of the human language, essentially. So we gave it a whole bunch of rules, and then we set it free on the internet and told it to start consuming as much of the internet's data as it could with these rules in mind, so it could start to build an understanding of what's being said to it and what it should spit out on the other end. Together, this with GBT and a couple other models put together, that's what's allowed us to have this breakthrough. And with ChatGPT now, it can understand, like I said, the context of not just text, but it can understand the context of voice and basically what's being said to it. Now, it's not perfect. It's always going to be a work in progress here because it's not actually a human and it's not actually intelligent. It's one of those marketing things. Again, it sounds and it looks intelligent, but it doesn't actually tell it a joke that it's never heard before. It's not going to laugh. It's not going to understand it. It's just a robot. So ChatGPT is capable of generating human-like responses to a wide range of prompts, making it useful for things like language translation. So people are telling it to be a French tutor now, and they're starting to get it to teach them French or Spanish or Dutch or what have you. They're starting to use it to program. So they've also had it crunch all the different libraries that are on the internet, and that's what it's allowing it to start coding for people and assisting with coders to basically more efficiently create softwares. And it's also starting to be implemented into websites as chatbots because, again, it does kind of understand what you're trying to say to it, and it can kind of understand what it's supposed to give out as a result. And the more you confine its parameters, the more accurate results and the results you want, you're going to get from it. So that's part of the prompting of ChatGPT. Yeah, so right now, one thing to keep in mind is with 3.5, it's not current. I'm not exactly sure when the database stopped. I think it's somewhere in 2020 is what the 3.5, so that's the free one. So it's not current, but ChatGPT 4, if you were to go on OpenAI, pay the $20 a month and get the 4.0 and use plugins, you could actually tell it to read pages on the internet for you and summarize it, give you context, expand on it, what have you. However, like with most tools, it's, and especially with this one, it has its limitations. It does have biases. It does sometimes, again, like I always want to stress, it doesn't actually understand. It's more or less giving you a % likelihood of what the next word should be based on what you've asked it. It's just math, essentially. So because of that, you do want to vet everything that you put in, everything that comes out should be vetted by you, because you are the intelligence, it is the tool. Yeah. Katie, you wanna go over the benefits?
Sure can. Vicky, I will take a look at the cheat sheet piece for you in a second.
Is it just me or are you quiet?
Nope, we're good, I think. Give me a thumbs up if you can still hear me. Benefits. So this is like, you know, lots of tools. They come with their pros and cons. So these are some of the pros. ChatGPT can definitely help you create content in bulk. So you can sit down, you can batch create your emails, your social posts. We're going to talk about creating itineraries in our session here today. It's often cheaper than hiring a content writer. So we consider ChatGPT to be like a personal writing assistant. So increase your own efficiency first. We believe and have tested this quite a bit that chat can really learn your brand style or your tone of voice quickly. So it can have a much more consistent use of your brand style than probably even you can, which is really helpful, again, for this batch creation and having this consistent brand feel. We find it's also more creative. So we do ask it, right, to, you know, write a haiku or all these different poetry styles we learned way back in high school that none of us remember. Chat can do that for you. And it processes the information faster than most of us as well. So it's actually gonna like 3x usually your output for writing, maybe even a little bit more. So it can help us be really efficient. Will's going to cover some limitations of the software just to ground you guys, and I'm going to jump into the chat here now. Go ahead, Will.
So just we're going to go over a couple limitations just to give you an idea of what he's not going to spit out and what you definitely shouldn't want, you know, what you shouldn't trust him to spit out accurately, let's say. So one thing, again, ChatGPT doesn't replace a human experience. And if it hasn't been written about on the internet, or it hasn't been written about accurately on the internet, he's not going to give you accurate information. I'm sure plenty of you on this call have gone to Google, asked it a question, and you're a professional in the space that you're asking the question. You read the first result in Google and you're like, that's not right. Well, Chat read that. As far as he's concerned, it's right. And he's going to give you that answer. And he's also going to give you that answer in so much confidence that you might believe him. That's one problem with it. He is very, he sounds very smart. He can structure a sentence, and he can really make it, he can really sell as if he knows what he's talking about. But if he read the wrong information, he doesn't actually understand that it's wrong. Again, he's got data biases. So depending on what ChatGPT you're using, you're going to get different outputs on the end. So what I mean by that is some companies use ChatGPT and then they put their own parameters around what they want and how they want him to respond to certain things. So softwares like Jasper use ChatGPT 4, but they give parameters around it to be more markety. You know, other ones might do parameters around sounding more funny, or, you know, it really depends on how they want to narrow in the data set and train the model for the type of information you're going to get out on the other side. So keep in mind that it is just a model, and it only understands what the humans have given it. So if we give it biases to this at the start, it's going to have biases at the end. It lacks common sense. So you can ask it basic math problems, it'll likely get them right. If you get more and more complex math problems, maybe more nuanced within those problems, he's not necessarily going to get them. Just like I said, he doesn't get humor because he's not intelligent. If it hasn't been out on the internet, if it's not something he's already scraped multiple times to then give you a predictable result, but if that predictable result's wrong, he doesn't know, right? So that's where you need to vet that. Hence that it doesn't replace the human experience. That covers that accuracy problem too, where he's, again, just don't trust that he's going to be accurate. And it's really bad for your brand to trust that he's accurate and push that information out without highly vetting it. Because if you're creating content, that is what represents your business. So if you just push it out without vetting it, ensuring that it's, accurate, sounds professional, and is in the tone of voice of your brand, somebody who's maybe that's the first time they've ever seen your business and they read that article generated by chat that wasn't vetted by anybody and they don't like it, they're likely never going to come back because they're just going to read it. They're going to go, this is all over the place. This doesn't help me. And they're going to start inferring that across your entire brand. Yeah. And one thing, if you're using the free version, it's not up to date. You're going to get far better answers with 4.0, and by using plugins with 4.0 to then actually, again, refine that parameter set of what he's going to give you for an answer. Another thing to watch out for is, and you're going to see this all out there on the internet, all over the place, he doesn't do keyword research. He doesn't do SEO. He doesn't actually understand click volume. So you can ask him what's keywords for this topic, and he'll spit you out commonly used words for that topic, but he won't understand the volumes, the click volumes behind those keywords. So he might be accurate as to these are keywords that are used within your brand or within the tour you're providing or whatever you're trying to write about. But you want to back that up with what's the click volume behind that. Let's actually go use SEMrush or Ahrefs or any of the other keyword tools that are out there to verify, one, is it worth writing about? And two, does it have click volume? Is it even a real, searched for word? Avoid shiny object syndrome. We like this one because, well, there's always going to be more AI tools, and every week you're going to see people telling you that this is the new best tool, and this is the new, that's part of marketing, is they're going to always tell you that their new tool is the better tool, and you should give them their email and their this, that, and the other thing to, use their new tool. To me, it's a lot better to start understanding how to use the AI and how to prompt him and get comfortable with one tool first, and then that'll infer to other tools. But if you jump around tools, it's a different dashboard. He's going to spit out slightly different results. And you're not refining yourself with that tool. It would be like if every day you're in construction and you use, a different tool each day that you have no understanding of how it works. Well, each day you're going to have to learn how that tool works. And that's a lot of time and energy. Yeah. And avoid changing content with AI. Again, he doesn't understand click volumes. He doesn't understand what the traffic on the internet is. He might spit out what seems to be interesting marketing ideas, but without backing that up with a strategy, with actual and understanding of what are the volumes, what are the people searching for these things. He's just going to tell you things that sound good, but they might not be interesting to everybody or even looked for. So don't use an AI and change your marketing strategy because the AI is telling you. Keep going with what works with your people, and use it to assist. Yeah. So now Katie is going to go over kind of how prompts work and how you might want to structure a prompt to have him spit out more accurate data and data more along the lines of what you might want him to spit out.
Awesome. So raise your hand in the chat if this looks familiar. Who's heard of the 5 W's before? Reflect back to your preschool English class, not preschool, elementary school English classes, right? So we have our who, what, where, when, why, and how. So that's just a really simple, nice rule of thumb framework that can help you create the prompt if you're going to be starting on some of your own. And this is just a way to make sure that you kind of include all of the content that chat's going to need to produce what you're really expecting. Okay. So what is a prompt? A prompt is just a structured command that includes specific criteria to help you produce a desired outcome. That's all it is. And we can use this framework to make sure that we include all the information. So an example of what is the expected task could be create a social post about traveling to the Kootenays, British Columbia. Where is the content going to be used? Where may also be a field that you put because you guys are destination marketing in a lot of cases. So remember to kind of use both. So in this one, my example would be to be used on Instagram because I'm asking for a social post. And I already told it about where the thing was taking place, about traveling to the Kootenays. Okay. How is all of your formatting constraints, basically. So do you want this to be descriptive? Do you want it to be in a certain tone of voice? Do you want it to be in a certain language? Do you want it to be of a certain structure? Do you want a number of characters or a bullet list, for example? Who, this is where your target audience comes in. And so this might be something like potential travelers looking for a place to go skiing. And when is another one of those things that you could kind of do both. When you want to use it, right? Like maybe you want to use it for your marketing in 2 weeks. That's one way you could think about it. But the way that we like to think about it is actually about like when you want people to be traveling. So maybe putting in a season or a month as part of your prompt. So for my prompt, it's going to say during the winter. And then why? What is the goal of this? So the why for my prompt is to get followers to sign up for my freebie, Secret Stashes, Best Runs of the Powder Highway. And we are going to jump over here to see this run in real time. Is my chat screen coming through for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, looks good. I just want to get rid of this meeting control because it's in my way. So this is our prompt. So this is my what am I looking for? Okay, this is my telling it where I'm going to be using it on Instagram. These are some of my how instructions. Okay, this is my who, my audience, looking for their next ski trip. Okay. And then we talked about the goal there. So that's our basic structure. And when I go ahead and run this, we are going to get some content produced that is going to be promoting the Powder Highway. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, that's up here in British Columbia, Canada. And I'm using it as an example today because it's something that I can validate the information on, right? So that as chat is writing for me, I can ensure that what's coming out actually fits with a place that I'm familiar with, okay? It does have jaw-dropping runs and variety of terrain and all those kinds of things. So that's our basic structure. So today, we're going to shift gears into showing you now how to use what we're calling our framework. I'll just pull this up here so you can see this in more detail. So our framework for using chat is basically, we like to start with writing the full itinerary copy for your Yuli pages first, okay? And this is because when you work in chat, you want to have content above that it can read so that it can help you, it can better, I'm going to use the word understand because I don't have a better word for this, but have some context for the output that you're looking for, okay? And then we want to write maybe some sales page copy. We want to cover your trip highlights because that's another area in Yuli that you're going to want to fill out. You will want to also create your trip summary as part of this. Then you're going to want to go on to your social media strategy, your social media captions, and all your other marketing assets after you've got the core pieces created. So, trying to get out of my presentation here. Let's jump back over to chat.
One thing I would say too is if for a prompt like this, if you found that it spat it out and it's just too long, one, the prompt above said social media post. If you want it to be shorter or more accurate in some ways, you could tell it Instagram post. And you can also refine his parameters at the end. So if you're like, I only want this to be 200 words long or 200 characters long, tell them.
Yeah, so we're going to start with our itinerary, day-by-day itinerary prompt. So we have a version of this in the cheat sheet, and basically it breaks down where to kind of fill in the blanks in the cheat sheet side of things. So we've filled them in to just run through this example with you. So we're telling it to act as a travel designer and write a 10-day itinerary. Obviously, you would want to maybe change the number of days for a certain region, okay, or for a certain highlight, or maybe you put your trip name in here, and for who. This is our high-end client. We want it in English, in a fun, adventurous voice, and we want it to be easy to read, okay? I've asked chat to ensure that each day it's got its own descriptive paragraph of approximately 500 characters. So here's where we're setting our parameters. I want it to try to include some driving distances. He doesn't always get this one, but we keep asking anyways. List the accommodations and meals in bullet point at the bottom of each day's section. That's a particular format that I've always preferred for itineraries. You might have your own style, so you'll want to massage that a little bit. We've given it an example of making the lists look a certain way. Okay, so this is our list at the bottom. And then we're actually providing the rough itinerary outline. So for this one to work, you do need to have some kind of sketch, whether that's something that you've created because you're the expert of this area, or you've got an itinerary sketch from a DMC or another local supplier. Hopefully you've got something that kind of looks like this, and with your list of inclusions at the end. Okay, so once you've loaded that all in, chat is going to read it and begin to produce our itinerary. So far, I'm liking what I'm seeing. 30 kilometers is close. May not be spot on, but it's not bad. It is about 100 kilometers between the two towns on this day when we have to do a transfer. And again, this is where that expertise in the area really comes in to vet all of the data and ensure that what's being created is accurate before it goes out to your people. Sometimes it gets a little tired, so we just encourage it to continue generating to get all the way to the bottom. So this content is an example of on your Yuli trip page, where you would go under the itinerary tab and you would have your day-by-day itinerary. So this is some copy from one of our previously ran versions of this webinar while we were prepping last night. So this is an example of what that can look like when you come into Yuli, and then you can go through all 10 days now, and you can create your content by pulling it out of here. You can, of course, put it into Yuli and add in some of your own writing if needed, right? Or if you correct any issues, like maybe some of these distances need to be just verified to be a little bit more accurate, or maybe you want to add the time and not just the kilometers, okay? So you can come in and do it that way. So the next piece that we'll want to create for getting our Yuli trip page all set up is going to be writing what we've called our either trip introduction copy or your trip summary copy. So your trip summary in Yuli is this first paragraph, this first area that is on the main page when people first load onto your trip page. So this is the content that you really want to catch people's attention. You want to really showcase why your trip, your experience, your destination is the one that, you know, is resonating with them and they should come with you. So this one, we're going to, again, keep working in our existing chat. So this is a little pro tip. Always keep working down in a previous chat, because the system is going to recognize what's above and continue to learn about this content, in our case, skiing the Powder Highway in Kootenay, British Columbia. and be able to generate and choose better words and put together better things, because it has content above to more thoroughly have context around what you are looking for it. So our next prompt, again, available in the cheat sheet, is to act as a travel writer and create an introduction to the itinerary above. Okay. Highlighting the Kootenays as a winter hotspot for adventurous souls seeking thrill, powder, and stunning mountain views. In this trip introduction, highlight why skilled skiers must put the Powder Highway on their bucket list, where they can shred world-renowned ski hills at Red Mountain, Whitewater, Revelstoke, and Kicking Horse. Talk about the epic powder turns, pristine terrain, and the thrill of being surrounded by a pack of adventurous skiers to ride with. So everything that's in brackets in this example is a thing that you would probably need to change to put in your own, type of person. Maybe you want it to read more like a local guide. Obviously the destination and the, activities included in all those things would need to be changed. So that's one of the structured prompts that we've created for you. So now it's gonna, again, review what we've already given it above and start to generate some content for us that we can put into our trip summary over on our Yuli page. If you need it to be shorter, because you don't want it to be super long, make sure that you do put in some context around character counts or number of paragraphs that you want, because one of those risks is that this can be a lot of text. So you can either add some images or you can reduce the number, the volume of the text.
You got a question?
I just have a quick, I had a quick one on the emojis that I see popping up there. I don't know if I missed this earlier. Did you tell it to use emojis specifically, or it decided to do that?
I did not.
When you tell him to be captivating, he'll start putting emojis in for you. Essentially, the moment you start telling him to be a bit more markety and like trying to make it eye-catching, he'll start pulling emojis and putting it in for you.
Fun.
Yeah, you can ask it for it, but you can also say, I could rewrite this. I could say right now, right, rewrite. Where's my, there we go. Sorry, my keyboard was disconnected there for a second. Rewrite this trip introduction to remove the emojis. Do try to spell things right for chat as well. And it will rewrite the content and take out anything that you don't want. So as your results are coming up and you are generating content, you can always ask it to shorten the content, rewrite the content to remove something, rewrite this as a list. You can basically type into the chat message box here on the bottom any other instructions that you may have missed, or you need to clarify to give more specificity to what the outcome is that you're looking for. Okay. So this now is a nice version for our trip summary. So we've got that part generated. So
That's a good question.
The next one, sorry, Will?
Nothing. You keep going. I'll answer that.
Great. So our next section in Yuli that we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to generate for is we need those highlight features. Okay. So Yuli trip pages are set up really great where you can select out either some destination highlights. If you're touring in Egypt, of course, the pyramids might be on this page, but it can also be other things that people might experience along the way. So we've picked skiing nirvana as the, experience that they're going to have while they're skiing in the Powder Highway as this. But we've generated a prompt for helping you to create the content for these highlight tiles as well. So this one is, again, we're asking chat to pretend to be a travel writer because that prompt works really well. And his task now is to create 3 trip highlights for an adventurous ski trip along the Powder Highway. These amazing activities should be engaging, thrilling, and fun-filled. Again, you would change these adjectives out for other things that would reflect your experience that you're sharing. Focus on these key features. So I'm kind of dictating what I want him to feature. I've kind of thought out what I think the highlights are, so I am dictating it a little bit. To be less than 500 characters, okay, a certain tone of voice, capture excitement, make sure to describe in detail what each highlight is worth experiencing. And with my goal of getting people to book this 10-day trip, right? So we're going to let chat go to work. So one of our highlights I said was to ski in Rogers Pass. Has anybody heard of Rogers Pass out there? It's one of our national parks here in Canada. I think it's our highest, one of our highest passes that has a road over it. And it's a world-renowned ski destination. Yes, okay, so it did a pretty good job. Powder Days, right? Talking about the Kootenay region is renowned for its abundant snowfall and unparalleled powder quality. That is a pretty true statement. We moved here and live here because of this, basically. And it's a little off the beaten path, a little hard to get here. So it's not as busy as other places, which is really fun. Après ski activities in this area is really great because the food is so good. There's lots of craft beer. We're not far from the Okanagan, so you can sit back and sip some local wine. So I wanted to make sure that those were accounted for here as well. So now with that content, I can come back to my Yuli page. I'll sneak in the back here and just show you where that's going to go. So this is our highlights area. So I'd add a highlight item, and that is going to look like this. We would use the name here that chat has generated for us, fun-filled après ski. Put that in here, and we put our text in. You can add an image within this box or use the little image at the top and decide whether you want to show it on the itinerary or just as a highlight item. In this case, I have it just as a highlight item. And when you go to the itinerary, you're not seeing that piece, okay? So now we've got our 3 highlights all generated. This basically rounds out the bulk of our Yuli content. So I think that was less than 10 minutes. I don't know if anybody was running a timer, but we have our trip summary, our highlights generated, and our day-by-day itinerary put together. And with that, you have a rough structure now for your Yuli page. All you have to finish is adding the images, which you can use from what they've got in their database, or you can upload your own. And you'd have to create your tasks and do up your pricing side of things. So what your trip includes, and put in your costs, and then you're ready to go live with your trip. So with all that being said, if you have some of the pricing stuff already done, you come in here and you do your content, put all the pieces together, you can have your Yuli trip up and live in, I think, within an hour, if you have all the pieces previously done. So that's pretty exciting. So that is creating your trip page. And then we are going to touch base now on promoting your trips. So many people are using social media. So we've created some prompts for you to support the creation of maybe a content plan plus some individual posts for different platforms. Okay. So this is an example of creating a 30-day Instagram content plan. So this is where we want to create some ideas. We've asked it to create a plan that will consist of 3 posts a week. We'll cover all the highlights we've talked about above. It's going to add in other interesting facts about the area. When we're asking it when creating the plan to start by creating the campaign objectives. So these are the different types of posts that we want to have it support us to create. We want to raise awareness about the trip, the region, the destination. We want it to create some content for conversions, which is going to be the sign up for our trip, book now, all that kind of stuff, engagement. maybe getting them to guess where a picture was taken, things like that. Once it's outlined the objectives, to put it into a calendar, come up with some creative ideas for scheduling, but don't create the content yet. So we're just looking for a framework, and we're asking it to make a list of stuff. So let's see what comes up for this one. So here it's generating our campaign objectives as we had asked. And it's going to start fleshing out for the first week what our 3 posts are going to be for week 1. And you can see that it's choosing different objectives
And giving you different ideas for each post.
Yeah.
Katie, just to be aware of the time and make sure we answer the questions. We have, I think one of the biggest questions that comes to mind, right, that has been asked is about intellectual property and how to make sure that what you're writing is not just plagiarizing from what's out there already. And of course, how does Google rank it, right? Because that's going to be a question as well. Like, what does it mean for your SEO if you use the AI generated content?
Sure. Will, do you want to pick up on
Yeah,
the
sure.
Google part?
So what we do is we use what would be called a plagiarism checker. So you can pay Jasper, you can pay, there's SEMrush has one where they'll basically scrape and see if there's any sentences within what you've written that's identical to something else on the internet. And we generally like to use that to start, because then it's inferring you've at least done your research in regards to, like, you've checked it against other things, and you're kind of like, not, I wouldn't say that you're totally absolving yourself of any issues, but at least now you can go, well, I use their plagiarism checker, and now SEMrush is going to be part of the issue here because they're telling you that it wasn't plagiarized. I would also say that intellectual property rights wise, this is going to be such a problem because they've already downloaded the internet without everybody's consent, and they've already put all of it into his modeling. He is already stealing, if you want to say it, right? Like, if you think that way in intellectual property rights wise, he's already done it. And he's already publishing at a rate that nobody in the world can stop. So it's kind of that hard part of, like, I don't necessarily know how they're going to stop it. So that's where you should vet it yourself, and you should put it in your own voice, and you should add things that are coming from your own head. Don't just push it out there. Like I said earlier, because that'll add new unique stuff. It'll ensure that you actually, like, added something of context, because otherwise you're just pushing something else in a different structure that's already out there in the world. So for that, otherwise he's really fast at starting to know stuff, especially ChatGPT 4. So I follow lots of people on Twitter, and I've seen people who have published a book like 3 weeks ago, and then one of his followers took the URL for the book and asked Chat to summarize the book, and he did. And the author was like, that's a scary summary of my book. So I don't know how he gets behind paywalled stuff. I've had him summarize articles that I couldn't get past the paywall. I didn't want to pay. So I put the URL in and I told him to summarize it. And, he'll talk, whether it's accurate or not would be another question. So to push that against, actually paying it and then seeing what's there would be an interesting thing. But I know that books were behind paywalls, and I know the author of the book, who was just like 3 weeks ago published, a month ago now, 3 weeks ago when the summary was made, and the author said it was scary accurate. So I don't know how he finds those things. I don't necessarily know how he gets past the paywalls. That's their own stuff. But the plagiarism side, I would run a checker. I would put my own info in, and then otherwise he's gonna get it. he's gonna crawl what you have, and he's gonna give it to somebody else.
Thank you, Will. And in terms of Google, right, differentiating between human-generated and AI-generated content, I think what we referenced in the agenda of this webinar as well, it's it's all about authenticity of your voice. Right? So it's all
Mhm.
about your story. So the one thing that ChatGPT will never know is your story. So it's becoming more and more about your unique way of expressing your story and your feelings about the trip, right? Especially in travel, it's always been emotional sale. It's never been just, oh, that's the, the cheapest version of what I want to get according to this requirements that I'm looking for. Maybe, but majority of the humans that we've been dealing with, that's not the way they make decisions. They usually connect personally, right? So when we talk about the content generated by chat, it's great based on the past experiences. It will never tell you what the true emotion, the deep emotion connected to it, right? It will never tell you about the person because it just this information is not there, right? It's not available. It will never tell you what it will do for you on a transformational level for upcoming right future because it doesn't read the future. It's still based on the past.
Mhm.
Um, and as we right from the marketing experts that kind of been following, like setting people experimenting with the tool itself, it's a lot about the expertise, experience, uniqueness, right of it, what Google wants you to do, authority and trust. Those basic things. Google already knows how to separate a lot of content out there from really valuable content, and just because people got access to producing a lot much more content now, does it mean that this ability goes away, right? So we're still gonna value the unique, the trustworthy, and we're still gonna rely on other people's opinion in reviews and giving it actually attention to decide if this content is valuable. However, Google will not punish you for using the AI generated content. In their eyes, that's as valid content as a human generated. So it's important thing to know. And in terms of references, of course, Google Chat is still wrong in a lot of ways, and you cannot just blindly trust it to reference everything it tells you, even if you just as of this moment, right, you check something versus Wikipedia or Google or any other trustworthy source, and you see that it's not 100%, not even 80% true.
Yeah, they also with like Chat GPT 4, you can ask him to reference it, but sometimes he'll just give you URLs. He'll just be like, yeah, I use these. And you can click them, and it's like that URL doesn't even work. So I'm sure they'll refine it, but yeah.
I wanted to also address the question I think that came from another question, like it will not replace the travel writer. It will not. Definitely, it will not replace the content creators. Definitely not at this moment, nowhere near that. But it is helping you express in a better way, right? So it's taking a lot of communication of human to human interaction. It takes into human. And I'm just going to address the funny conversation we have on the side, Will, that when you started using the term he towards the chat GPT, all of a sudden it was like, why he? Right? Because it's not a human, right? We want to personalize it. So we want to kind of give it a little bit of like we're talking to a human. It could be she as well as we know. It's it for a lot of people, right? It's not binary anymore. We don't know how to they. So they give us back the results, right? So this communication that we have to human, we need to reprocess it a little bit, reframe it in a way we talk to AI, because it is not human. And it's important to remember that it's not human. So what seems like a common sense for human is of take this context from all the experiences, the cultural aspects that you already have, and use it. You have to actually clear state it. It's almost like a conversation between people to people, the tech people. Like when you go to a programmer, like, you didn't tell me that. If you didn't tell me that, I will not give you this result. So the same with ChatGPT. If you didn't tell me that you're using it in the context of, let's say, Mexico versus Guatemala, because those are two different cultures, even though the language is the same, right? It will not assume that. So the more specific you can be, the better results you get back. And what you don't want it to say, right? So it comes with experience. Rewrite this, make it funnier. Rewrite this, make it more appealing to this specific group of people. And I think Katie also addressed the point of training it. So when we talked about creating the itinerary, if you feed a few past itineraries that you already had to ChatGPT, it will give you a better result because it will better understand your brand, your voice, your tone, right? So look, Katie, you're right. We need to come up with a new term. Because understand is not exactly the right thing. It will take the input and give you the more correct result.
Yeah, 100%. And so in our cheat sheet, this is sort of the back end view, just to give you all a sample. You know, we've reminded you about when, as if you're going to go write the email copy and you want to use this prompt, for example, then what you need to do is you need to go into chat and say, hey, read this itinerary, paste the whole damn thing within the brackets, shift enter twice, and then put this prompt into the chat box, just like Vika said, so that you're preloading it with some of that content so it understands that it should read what's above and use that as its data parameters to only generate content about that thing that's up there and then help create your copy. So we have accounted for reminding you about when to preload some of that content in there to, again, increase the accuracy of the content that you're looking for.
Thank you, Katie. I want to open up the floor for some live questions. So maybe if we have something we need to address before we move on.
Mhm.
Nick, all day, your experience, I know you came into something, right? Some kind of obstacles.
There we go. Not so much obstacles. I've been playing with it for about 2+ months now. And again, just teaching it how to prompt, or learning how to prompt to get what I want is the main thing. Right now, I was using it last night. I just came back from a Key West retreat that I did. I copied the template over from the previous trip, and now I'm going through and just having ChatGPT respin all of the text that I already had in there so that I don't have to do it from scratch. And it's fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful. And I've also been able to take a lot of the publications that I've been creating and having them automatically translated into different languages, which has been terrific. It's not always 100%, but it is pretty darn close. The people who've come back and said, who've given me feedback. So yeah, it's been pretty awesome. And I'm also playing a lot with Midjourney right now for images. And for the folks who are saying that it will never replace the travel writers, just wait, because now we're able to take photos and have AI describe what's going on in the photos. So hang on, kids, learn how to prompt. That's what I tell you now.
Love it.
Thank you, Nick. Vicky, you had a question.
Yes and no, a few things. I've played with it a little bit here and there, doing some different things. So for example, one thing that was super handy I did last week, I was actually trying to work out compound percentage drop by year up until 2030, and I asked ChatGPT and it came up with this with the answer I wanted in seconds, which was fantastic, rather than me sit and calculate it all for ages. I also asked it to find duplicate hashtags within a huge bunch of text, which I thought worked, and then realized actually it hadn't. So that was kind of interesting. So it didn't do that so well. And I also asked it about myself and my brand, which was interesting, because actually some of the stuff that came back with wasn't about me. And I showed my intern and she said, one of the things it said actually about my business was that Earth Changes promotes carbon offsetting, and it's like, no, I don't. And actually I'm actually quite against carbon offsetting. So it was like, hang on a minute, and that needs to be corrected. And intern suggested, well, have you tried to teach it? Have you taught it? And so I'd gone back to my thread and said, no, Earth Changes does not do that. And yes, it was very much, sorry about that, here's a correction, sort of thing, which is interesting. And that made me, coming on to my question, think, potentially we can influence competitor information. And what's to stop someone negatively influencing your PR reputation within content?
I think at the moment, your correction only lasts within the session that you're having with it.
Does it?
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
that's
don't think it's
interesting. A
actually
friend of
taking
mine
that back
checked
in and
hers,
passing it on.
a friend of mine checked hers, and it said she climbed Everest. So she was just like, "Well, I haven't, but we'll go with it."
Yeah, I think as well. I think every time you start a new chat, he's starting fresh with the parameters that he has from
Right.
OpenAI to begin with. And then as you prompt it and you give it more information within its window, it'll know that because it'll read what's above. But I don't think that that's retroactively put back into their database, because it would just get too crazy if you were going to let
Yeah.
every human train it at the same time.
Well, exactly. It would be a a Wild West Wikipedia of everyone giving conflicting information, I guess.
Yeah.
I
But
wanted
then
to
that begs the
also,
question, is the accuracy again,
Which it comes down to, what do you want your brand to be represented, right? So you use it and then vet the info and put the accurate info out there so that it's always on brand, accurate, and it looks, that's what's good for your business, right? And if everybody who uses it thinks that way, as opposed, now not everybody does. I watch people who are like, oh, I used, this AI and I published 1,000 articles in the last week out to a new domain, and they're watching like their site rank, and it's like, yeah, but you have no clue what you just put out there.
Yeah. I think if you can stay on top of it though, but if for example a load of bloggers then used it as a reference point and purely regurgitated what they found, and that finding was inaccurate, and that then is on multiple pages, and it becomes harder and harder to get that corrected, in effect, even if you correct it on your own site, it's out there, and suddenly people believe other sites more than they believe your own.
But you could see how that happens even in the adventure industry, right? There's things that were normal safety precautions that now are like, you're crazy if you do that. Like rock climbing changes, and first aid changes, and that's where humans need to stay up to date. And
Right. Interesting.
I mean, to me, that's what will ultimately reinforce the value of the humans that are leading these group experiences and taking people on these trips. Is to some degree, you can't trust what's on the internet. So this content's just to attract them to you as a human, then they connect with you as that human, and then they do their human to human verification and then choose to travel with you or, trust you. So in a weird kind of way, I think it not being accurate almost reinforces why human to human connections are so important, especially in this age.
I think too, if you're like some semi-professional in the space that you're searching, I think it might help you vet businesses you don't want to work with ever too. Because like I said, we can create a AI generated content to land on the first page of Google and not read a single word that was in there, and it could just be a bunch of gibberish. I'm not going to work with that business then. After I read it and I go, well, that's not accurate, and that's not accurate, and that's not accurate. Well, these people don't put accurate information out there. So they've just been basically blocked in my mind. I'm just never going to do business with them. I'm not going to go back to their website. And you don't want to be that person.
I love that. Well, I wanted to make that point as well. It's very important, and it's becoming more important to watch exactly what you're saying as a brand, what you put out there, because it lives forever, right? Because it's ranked, and it's becoming more difficult to correct yourself once you put that information. So the authenticity of the information that you put in, the authenticity of your story is actually, the value of it is increasing exponentially, because everybody has access to create that content in huge amounts. And if you don't care about it, if you don't use it as a tool, but rather use it as it just blasted there for me, you're gonna lose. And you are talking about the ocean of information. It's not information that's becoming knowledge valuable anymore. Information lost its value on its own, or decreased the value, even if it's correct information, but more the uniqueness of your voice has increased value in this. And especially when we're talking about experiential economy, experiential businesses that travel is, right? It's all about this bonding and connection. And one more point I wanted to add to Vicky's point as well is, you can have, even though we personalize it, we talk refer to ChatGPT as a he right now, you can use that tool as ask you questions, right? It's not just one way straight. It just says give it command, give it prompts. It's like have ChatGPT act as a person if that is your social marketing assistant, for example. Ask me 30 questions that will help you understand my brand, right? It will come up with the questions for you to fit it. Like use ChatGPT as a guide, as the person or non-human being that can have the conversation with you. Help me, train me. Like for example, the main agenda of this webinar was written by ChatGPT, right? But it was edited by human after that to make sure that the actual content of the webinar matches the audience, right? And then we ask you questions to also direct the conversation as well. So using chat as the beginning structure and then adjusting it depending on who you're talking to, who you're trying to make this human to human bond, seems to be the way to go with, rather than just feeding it tasks and receiving the input without correcting it.
Just going back on your previous point, I find it quite interesting if ultimately companies' value is going to change or be impacted by how human you are versus how automated or whatever this is, and therefore accurate, and it's all around reputation management. It's just interesting to see that potential impact on the bottom line valuation, for example, of a business. I wonder that will feed into startup valuations and things.
Anybody wants to pick up that point?
No, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's not really a question. It's just a kind of something to mull over.
Contemplation. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, to be fair.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Good point though.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think all of this brings up so many different threads and so many questions about where things end up going. And, I think to Nick's point, learn your prompts and be in this and be aware and make sure you don't get steamrolled. And, to Will's point, like it's out there, it's doing things, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, that will play out and things will change and restrictions will come in, and maybe we'll start to see it being like, this came from, from your website, right? Maybe it'll say from Vicky Smith's, blog post or something like that, but that's still going to be in there, and knowing how to be part of that in the most beneficial way for your business and for your own digital life. That's the key. It's not to get drowned in the flood, right?
Yep.
100%.
And I think Elisa mentioned as well in PR, if you're a PR professional, you're aware of what to prompt for, right? If you know, like, this needs to be in this article, it means it needs to have the voice of that magazine representing it, right? And this content needs to be in a different outlet. It means it needs to have the voice. So the person who will actually know what to ask for is going to become more valuable versus the person who just give me content, right? That's a different story. So I think what we heard is get the tools that are relevant to your industry, to your specific job, and master those tools. Because everything else, focus on what's relevant to you. Don't get bought into the new shiny ideas, as we mentioned in the beginning. We are at time. Do we have any last questions? Anything to finalize and summarize with?
Well, look, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Really wonderful, all the questions and everything. I hope this spurs you guys to start leveraging ChatGPT even more than you have been. And I really appreciate the work that you guys have done to demonstrate how you can use it to create Yuli trip pages even faster. So please do the homework, go take the cheat sheet, and we hope to connect again and potentially do a sort of a checkup to see how you guys are doing and what you've accomplished. And yeah, we will continue our learning process with ChatGPT, and appreciate that you're along for the ride.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Joining us.
Thank you.
Reach out anytime.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.